All right, if you're doing graphics, we have two different sizes. So have your classmate give you a screenshot or a still image of their story and ask them if it's going to run during the news section or if it's going to run during entertainment and sports. If it's running during the news section, then we use a smaller graphic, the 800. It's actually 800 by 450, and it fits nicely over the shoulder at the news desk. If they are doing entertainment or sports, then we're going to use the 1080 graphic because this is a 1920 by 1080 that fits in the monitor screen behind them. So let's look at the 800 graphic first. I'm going to open that up. Actually, I have it opened in Photoshop. And once the classmate provides you a screenshot of their image, or if they don't have a good screenshot, you can also look in story blocks and see if there's a stock photo that you can use. And then if you can't find anything there, then you can probably think about creating one in Photoshop or Illustrator if that's something you'd like to do. All right, so I'm going to find the still image that I'm going to use here. Here it's COVID. So I'm going to right click and say I'm going to open this with Photoshop. It'll open up in another tab here. So once the layer is selected over here, I'm going to do Command A on my keyboard. That selects the entire image. And then I'm going to do Command C to copy it. And then I'll come over here to my 800 template graphic. I'm going to put my cursor in between one of these layers. So what we're doing here, this is actually a mask. So everything that is coming into that layer is going to be masked on the outer edges. So it'll only fit what's in that mask. So if you select somewhere in between these images, then it'll paste it already inside the mask. So I'm just going to select layer 3, but find one of the images and just click inside of it and do Command V so we can paste it. So here is my new image. I'm simply going to turn off the layers on top of it. Only these two that have the little arrow, those are the ones that are actually being fitted inside the mask. Okay, so this is the image that I just brought in. So it's here, but it's a little off-centered. So I'm going to use my position tool up here. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm just going to move it to the right and move it up a little bit. So you can reposition it, and this is how the mask is working. It's blocking out everything else. You can also resize it here. If I were to do Command T, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm sorry, I use a lot of shortcuts in Photoshop, and I don't teach Photoshop a lot, so I don't know how not to use shortcuts. So I do Command and the minus key to zoom out, and you'll see when I did Command T, it selected the entire image. So this is how big the still image is. So if I wanted to, I can hold down my Shift key and then resize it by just bringing down one of these corners, right? So that's my resizing tool, and then I can reposition it. And then when I'm happy with it, I'll just hit the return key on my keyboard. And that's it. Then I want to change this text. So you'll come up with 1, 2, or 3 words that summarizes a story. So let's say this is a story about not working remotely, but working in person. So maybe in-person learning would be a good slug line for this image. So up here where it says text, I'm going to select that layer and then come over here and double click inside of it. And I can simply write in-person learning. And then I'll click off of it or click on another layer. So here, make sure that you're typing and you're using sentence case. So every first letter in the word is capitalized. And you want to double and triple check your spelling and making sure that this is the right title for the right image. Once everything looks good, then come up to File, Save As, and we're going to save this as a PNG file. This will allow for some transparency in the image. And we're going to name it 800, and then I usually do whatever my slug line is here. So I would put in-person learning. Save it in the file that probably has the date of the newscast for graphics. And that's it for the 800 over-the-shoulder graphic. Forgot to mention this, but when you're typing in your text down here, make sure that the font that's selected is September bold. I'm going to show you that by coming up to Window and selecting Paragraph. Actually, not paragraph, sorry, Character. And this is what we want to use, September bold as our character. And let's try to leave it at a 30-point font, because if we go too small, then it's really hard to read on television. If you don't see the September font in Adobe Photoshop, then you can click on the drop-down menu and then come over to More Fonts from Adobe Fonts. Click on that, it'll take you to the Adobe website, and then here you can type in the name of the font. And then here you would just activate the font. Mine's activated. And once you do that, it'll sync up with your Photoshop file, and it'll transfer the file or activate that font in here. So just give it a couple of minutes. If you don't see it right away, give it a couple of minutes and then it should show up. So if you're working on a story that is going to air in the sports section or the entertainment section, then you would just go to the other template and open up the 1080 graphic template. And this is a little bit easier, so we're just going to paste it and we're going to make sure that it fits within this. There's really no mask in here, so don't worry about putting a mask. I'm just going to use the same image, and it's already selected because I can see this little marching ants all around it. So I'm just going to hit Command C to copy, come over to my tab for the 1080 graphic, Command V to paste it, and I'm going to turn off the layer behind it. So this image is a little small. It's not exactly 1920 by 1080. So I'm going to scale it up just a little bit. I don't want to scale too much because then I could lose resolution in the image. So ideally when you get it, it would be in 1920 by 1080 and you wouldn't have to scale it. But for this purpose, I'm just going to do Command T and then hold down my Shift key and then kind of stretch it by one of the corners. And then I'll reposition it to see where I'm at. I want to cover the entire screen. So this will work perfectly for our entertainment and sports section because it'll fit right into the monitor. So once you've got that, File, Save As. We're going to do JPEG. So we'll save it as a JPEG. We'll name it 1080. And I'll just keep it as in-person learning. And you can do kind of a large file here, but maybe not all the way. Maybe I kind of like go from high to maximum. As soon as it turns to maximum, that's where I kind of like the quality. That way it's still kind of a small size file. I mean, 376 kilobytes. And then hit OK. And you're good.